Welcome to the Budget and Appropriations Committee. I am Danielle McCray, Chair of the committee, as well as the Councilwoman for the 2nd District. I'm calling to order Council Ordinance 26-0188, Ordinance of Estimate for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2027. This is day 4 of budget hearings. At this time, I want to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones. During us today, we have Council President Zeke Cohen. We have members of the committee, Vice Chair Isaac Yissy Slifer representing the 5th District. And we have Councilman Purse Gray representing the 8th District. We're also joined by Council members Mark Parker of the 1st District, Councilwoman Felicia Porter of the 10th District, Councilwoman Odette Ramos of the 14th District, Councilman Zach Blanchard of the 11th District, and Councilman Mark Conway of the 4th District. In addition, we have several representatives from the Mayor's Office, the City Council President's Office, the Office of Council Services, and the committee staffer for today is Marguerite Karen. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over just a few items. We are going to have, for council members and committee members, we are going to have 2 questions, 1 follow-up initially. I will be prioritizing committee members first. For any committee requests to the administration or an agency, I need you to clearly identify it as a committee request and provide a reasonable response date. All requests must be related to the FY2027 budget. And the preferred format for committee requests can be found within your email. Agency presentations for presenters, please use the lectern. I see Director Moore there. Before you get started on your presentation, please state your first and last name and your position so you can be identified for the record. That's when any agency representatives are also giving their first initial answer to a question. We're going to make every effort today to adhere to the previously shared schedule. The agenda for today, for the rest of the day, is going to be the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services at 12:30 p.m., Department of Transportation at 2 p.m., Enoch Pratt Free Library at 6 p.m., and the Baltimore City Public School System at 6:30 p.m. At this time, we are going to go directly into Baltimore City Recreation and Parks presentation. You can start whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Councilwoman McCray, Council President Cohen, and members of the City Council. I'm joined today by members of my senior leadership team who help lead the work of Baltimore City Recreation Parks every day. I want to take this time to thank Mayor Scott and the City Council for your continued investment in Baltimore's parks, recreation centers, pools, programs, and public spaces. Today, I'm not simply presenting the budget, I'm presenting the results of your investments. Baltimore City Recreation and Parks is more than a city agency. We are an essential part of the quality of life infrastructure that serves residents in every neighborhood of Baltimore. Baltimore City Recreation and Parks has been named a finalist for the 2026 National Gold Medal Award, the highest honor in parks and recreation. We're competing against some of the nation's largest and well-resourced park systems, and Baltimore is one of only 4 finalists in our agency, in our category. This recognition is based on the excellence and long-range planning, resource management, environmental stewardship, programming, and service delivery. It reflects years of intentional investment, strong leadership from Mayor Scott and this council, and the dedication of our staff who serves Baltimore residents every day. Simply put, Baltimore is being recognized as one of the best parks and recreation systems in America. What makes this recognition especially meaningful is that it comes at a time when Baltimore is delivering historic levels of investments and measuring results. Over the last several years, we have opened new recreation centers and aquatic facilities, renovated parks, expanded programming, improved service delivery, and strengthened our environmental stewardship efforts. The gold medal recognition validates that Baltimore is not just investing in recreation, we're setting a national standard for what urban park and rec systems can achieve. This year, Baltimore's City Rec and Parks expanded access to recreation, health, and wellness in safe spaces across Baltimore. In aquatics, we opened 3 new outdoor pools and 1 new indoor facility, serving more than 600 participants through swim lessons, achieving 0 drowning incidents. We also strengthen our workforce pipeline by recognizing and recruiting Baltimore City Public Schools student athletes into our lifeguard positions, creating employment opportunities for Baltimore youth. For youth and families, more than 3,200 youth enrolled in summer camp at 43 sites citywide. Our Rec on the Run program brought recreation directly into neighborhoods, while Midnight Basketball Team Program, the STEAM initiatives, and School Break Program continues to provide safe and engaging opportunities for Baltimore youth. Across the city, our events, wellness initiatives, and cultural programming draws thousands of residents into our parks and recreation centers, conservations, and public spaces, strengthening community connection and increasing access to recreation opportunities for all Baltimoreans. In urban forestry, we delivered measurable operational improvements. Maintenance pruning backlog was reduced by 81%, tree removal backlog by 83%, and residents are receiving service significantly faster than in previous years. These improvements mean safer streets, healthier trees, and more responsive service to Baltimore communities. At the same time, we continue to expand Baltimore's urban canopy through restoration projects, invasive species removals, and community partnerships that support long-range environmental sustainability. Our deer management program safely harvested 227 deer with 0 public safety incidents, resulting in more than 30,000 meals donated to the Maryland Food Bank and the Maryland Zoo. This is conservation, public safety, and community benefits working together to improve quality of life for Baltimore residents. The proposed FY2027 budget reflects our shared commitment to the people of Baltimore. This budget supports safe parks, quality recreational programs, environmental stewardship, workforce development, and critical investment that improves quality of life in every neighborhood. Our staff, from foresters to lifeguards, from rec leaders to maintenance crews, show up every day to serve Baltimore residents. They maintain parks, mentor youth, operate rec centers, steward our natural resources. The results are clear, the investment is working. We respectfully ask for your continued support for the FY2027 budget so we can continue to build a healthier, stronger, and safer Baltimore. And again, good morning. I am Dr. Reginald Moore, Executive Director for Baltimore City Recreation and Parks. Thank you for allowing me to do a quick opening statement. Now I will go through our budget slides. Change slide. It's not working? Oh, it's working, okay, there we go. So this first slide just shows the number of service areas. We have 12 service areas throughout our agency that makes up the Baltimore City Rec and Parks. Next slide. This next slide, of course, is our mission to improve the health and wellness of Baltimore through quality recreational programs, preserving parks and natural resources, and promoting active lifestyles for all. While also identified, there's 3 different pillars that we, as part of this budget, focuses on. Of course, improving healthy neighborhoods livable through clean streets and green spaces, prioritizing our youth, and modernizing public safety. Next slide. So this first slide is Service 644. It is where all the administrative offices are located and functions within the agency. The first thing I want to highlight is the reallocation of $394,000 from park maintenance and horticulture are for existing positions in the agency that were on state funding. We're shifting that funding to the general fund. In exchange, we're shifting state funding back into those resources so there is no loss in revenue for park maintenance or horticultural services. Also, $300,000 in innovation funds that are going to be used to help fund our great work that our capital team is doing. It will fund 3 capital positions. And then to continue to expand on our program and opportunities, we're partnering with the Carmelo Anthony Foundation and a $40,000 state grant to offer scholarships for the community there. That service area, the budget is $11,943,000 with 84 positions. Next slide. Our next slide is Service 645 Aquatics. Current budget there is roughly $3,758,071. There's 6 positions. Really excited about this collaboration partnership with the Michael Phelps Foundation. Mental health is extremely important. With this collaboration, our team went out, spent some time training with Michael Phelps and his team, but they've offered $32,000 so that we can offer safe pool lessons at 5 of our aquatics facilities. And then also this funding includes the support of opening 2 additional pools, which is Greater Model Pool, which is something that's extremely excited to open here in the next couple of weeks. And then also to support the Chickwell Recreational Indoor Pool that was just recently opened. Next slide, please. Next slide is 646, park maintenance. Current operating budget is $14,195,004, 91 positions. One of the things just to, again to highlight is that this transfer $204,000 in general funds is being replaced with state funds as an offset. And again, there is no net loss to park maintenance budget. Also, I want to note that our facility maintenance SR is currently on this budget, but also you're going to see it again in the new division that it serviced, which is 912. Next service 647 is our youth and adult sports. One of the things we've wanted to do was to have a center director at Upton to operate the boxing center, but have not been able to find someone to serve in that capacity at the level we want. So that position was abolished because of it has been vacant for 2 years. But we're going to continue to find strategic ways to continue to advance the Upton boxing. This service has a budget of $1.845014 and currently service 8 positions, and it supports citywide athletics throughout the city of Baltimore. Also, they operate and maintain the Myers Soccer Pavilion. Next service, please. Service 648 is our community recreation centers. It is our largest service. Of course, this is where most of all of our rec center operations, all of our programming take place. Their current operating budget requested for 27 is $26,753,352 with 169 positions. Some of the highlights, this includes the allocation for $1.2 million for the operation of 2 new rec centers that will be coming online later this summer, which is the Gardenville Recreational Center, as well as the Elijah Commons Recreational Center. Also, to help enhance and continue to provide resources to expand our programming, there's an additional $600,000 that was transferred from the education fund. And then we are also, a couple years ago, $2.2 million was transferred from CDBG fund to support the Dawson Center, as well as our STEAM education programming. And with the Dawson Center kids, this funding also supports summer camp slots for the young people in that community. Next slide, please. Service 649 is our enterprise fund. It's where all of our special facilities are located, such as your Mimi DePietro, Mount Pleasance. But also one of the things that we've been hearing from this council as well as the community is about how we continue to expand on our Nature Education Center. And so there's 3 positions that's being created this year, full-time position for our teachers in our forest preschool program at Carrie Murray Recreational Center. Currently, there's $2.8,779,824 with 10 positions in this area. One of the areas we continue to focus on is this area is a cost recovery focus, and so how we continue to move, making sure the fees are helping balance out the cost for operating this facility. Next slide, please. Service 650 is our horticulture. Pretty much they maintain all of our horticulture activities as well as they operate the Sebring Arboretum as well as the Rollins Conservancy. The current budget for this year is $2,626,374, 17 positions. One area note, you're going to see a decline in target for visitors this year because our goal is for the Rollins Conservatory to go under construction. So it will be closed for some period of time so we can repair the second oldest glass conservancy in the country. Next slide, please. 651 is our older adults. It's pretty much services where our programming is focused on our older adults throughout the city. They maintain their current level, no additional funding. Their current budget operation is $624,006 with 4 positions. Next service, please. Next slide. Therapeutic recreation is where focus on our disability communities. This area also is another area that does not have any current increase in service levels. Their current operating budget is $749,037 with 3 positions. Next slide, please. Service 653 is another one of our enterprise focus areas. minimal to no general fund support in this service line. Their focus has to be on permits, and that's one of the things that we have to continue to look at is our current permit fees and how we continue to operate this so that it does not become a financial burden that we have to try to start supporting it with general fund. That current operating budget is $1,960,414 with 10 positions, and also they're the ones who deal with all of our programs. For example, like Birds, Bourbon, and Bacon, that was this past weekend at Gwynns Falls. Next service, please. Urban Forestry, 654. Operating budget is $11,060,959. Currently has 32 positions. Again, I just want to note that the funding, one of the highlights is, I think everyone saw the success of our deer management program. No incidents, 3 of our large parks, and I shared earlier in my opening statement the impact of over 30,000 meals being provided to the Maryland Food Bank and to the zoo. So this is just for us to continue our efforts to make sure that we have a deer management program that we can maintain our forest land and also protect deer as well and their population. Also to note that, as I stated in my opening statement, was the reduction in their backlog and tree prunings as well as tree removals. And a lot of that is contributed to just having the resources, because we did not have a lot of major storms this year that would have pulled those resources someone else. So our team made sure that we focus on the backlog, and that backlog now is down to 3 to 5 months, which is within range of the national time frame for removal of trees. So I'm really excited for that work in our urban forestry. And the last service change slides. Our last service is our facility maintenance. This is a new service. It was extremely important. We transitioned this last year, breaking this out from park maintenance to make it its own, because it's extremely important that we be able to track and monitor and also allocate the budget that's being used to help maintain over 12 million square feet of space that we operate, 267 parks. It is their job to help maintain and operate those, along with the maintenance of our pools. But what we're really excited about in this budget is the opportunity to grow our staffing. One of the big challenges have been for us is we spend a lot of money in contracting for our plumbing. But the challenge has been is that we have not been able to attract plumbers with the current salaries that's being asked. With administration support this year, what we're creating is a pipeline where we're gonna be able to hire a master HVAC tech as well as a master plumber. And then administration has supported with 2 apprenticeships that now we can go into the community college and we can start building our own force. And the exchange of this will be is that we will see some adjustments and decreasing in some of our contractor costs, and eventually we would like to see us build our team, which is part of what the playbook discussed as we get ready, hopefully this fall, to be able to share this with you all as our consultants finish. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I will be open for questions.
Thank you, Director Moore. We're going to go to Council President Cohen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director, and to the entire agency. Really appreciate what you all do for our kids, our adults, our older adults, critically important work. My operating premise is that nature and parks and rec centers can be healing. You were the second agency to engage around trauma-informed care. I know you have a background, and part of your PhD looks at the impact of trauma on young people and how recreational spaces can be both healing and preventive. Could you share, one, how those trainings went with your staff, and how you are taking the learnings and continuing to apply them to the agency?
Councilman Cohen, thank you, and thank you for your leadership and focusing on mental health and making sure that it is at the front and center of us as a city as we continue to expand and grow. So yes, sir, I'm so excited to speak about us being the second agency to actually go through this one. I was excited when the opportunity was presented to us because one of the things that we all know is that young people experience trauma. And one of the places they always come to is rec centers. And before we can support young people, we need to make sure that our staff who may have never addressed their trauma can have their trauma addressed. And so we went through a year-long training with trauma-informed care. All of our staff now is trauma-informed care trained. Some of the things that we're doing also is as you build a culture, you got to be able to have it where people are open to be able to communicate when they're struggling, when they're having their challenges. If there's experiences, if there's situations that occur, we're able to properly train and offer circles for our staff to sit and talk. But one of the things I really want to speak about is how we go about handling even our young people that work for us. As I stated earlier, we have quite a few young people that's in our lifeguard staffing. Young people are young people. We had two lifeguards that had some kind of issue, some kind of beef that we didn't know. It did not happen at the workplace, but it ended up at the workplace. Naturally, one of the things trauma-informed care has taught us is that the first thing we have to do instead of reacting and saying, hey, you no longer have a job, we need to pull back and try to get to the root cause. We was able to bring in our team, have a circle of those young people, and now this is 2 years going, and they have showed up to work every summer, no more issues. But that is what trauma-informed care training has done for us. It's making us think differently, look at our processes and our policies different, and that's a tribute to your leadership in moving forward with the Larger Commons Healing Act.
Thanks, Director. And I do want to appreciate the way the seriousness with which the agency engaged in that work. I watched it and paid close attention, and just want to thank you and your folks for taking it seriously. And just that, as we continue to drive down violence across the city of Baltimore, the story you told and figuring out how we de-escalate conflicts from a trauma-informed lens before they become a violent encounter, before young people in any way hurt themselves or each other, I think is really key on the prevention side of how our city thinks about violence, public health, safety, all these ideas. So really appreciate how you all took this and have run with it. In a similar vein, I'm really interested in the idea of outdoor schools. I know this is a concept that is pretty popularized in Japan and other Asian countries. The idea being nature can provide a great platform for our kids, particularly little kids, to learn, to grow, and to connect with the natural world. I know there's some activity at Carrie Murray Center. You mentioned it in the budget presentation. If you could expand on that and talk about the potential for rec and park, city schools, early childhood education to have more of a outdoor, play-based, in nature spaces flavor to it, because I think that's something that's really exciting for a city that oftentimes can struggle with getting our kids outdoors and getting them into environments where there are many trees and where there is water and all the rest. So if you could talk about that.
Again, thank you for those comments and that question. Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things being in an urban city is how do you connect our young people to nature? How do you get them outside? And so there's a couple things I want to really highlight here. One is our forest preschool program, which is based out of Carrie Murray, as you stated. We saw the high demand there, but what we had previously was seasonal individuals working as teachers, so we had to make those FTEs so we can create consistency there. So I think our first step was we had to pretty much solidify and strengthen our base, right, in our preschool program, where those young people are experiencing, and also where kids go outside. Another thing we've been doing is our forestry team, Camp Small, has helped build outdoor classrooms in some of our schools around the city. So that's another collaboration partnership that we're doing. And we as an agency is going to be looking at this year how we can continue to expand outdoor education in some of our other spaces and how we can maybe expand our forest preschool program. So those are some of the things that we're looking at in this upcoming budget. And then I think we have an opportunity as we probably you're not going to recognize the name, but we're naming it the Catalyst Center, which is the facility that's next door to Mimi DePietro. We're going to make that our STEM hub, but one of the things we want to be able to do is expand outdoor education and partner with some of the surrounding schools. So that's some of the things that we've been working on, how we continue to put nature front and center with our young people so that they get an early connection. And then the final thing I would say is that I'm so excited. We've been working on this, I feel like forever, is the campground that's in Gwynns Falls. We have some federal funding. Our team is working through the design with that because we want to be able to bring our young people into the forested area here in the center of Baltimore, the second largest urban forested land in the country, and be able to allow them to connect with nature, but they're inside of a city. But when you get into the woods, you don't hear everything that you hear normally if you're walking on the streets of Baltimore. So that's some of the things that we want to continue to expand as we continue to grow nature and connect nature with our young people.
Director, I appreciate that. I'll say this council has a particular interest in early childhood education. I want to thank Chair Bullock, Vice Chair Parker, and our education committee, who's held a series of hearings on pre-K and on childcare. And I see a potential really beautiful nexus between forest school, outdoor space, parks in the city of Baltimore, and our youngest babies that are coming up. We know that the most cognitive brain growth happens at 0 through 5 age. Here's a real opportunity for our young people to be thinking about preservation, to be thinking about sustainability, to be thinking about the importance of our outdoor space at a really, really young age, and to pull parents, families, all of us together. You're looking at a group of people, several of which are either have kids in preschool and city schools or have been through preschool. And so I will just say, I'm gonna push in the next year that this is an area where I wanna see expansion. I wanna see more partnership with city schools, and I want us to be a leading city when it comes to how we think about getting our young people outdoors in a more formal way very early on. Thank you, Director, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We've been joined by Councilman Jermaine Jones. Director, I want to talk about the playbook. I noticed you guys did launch the Asset Explorer. You launched the Capital Improvement Projects Tracker, which is very helpful. The playbook is our 10-year plan. The initial date was to finalize that and have it officially released by June the 30th. Are we still on track for that to be released this year?
We're on track, Councilwoman, for it to be released this year, but it won't be June 30th. We've had some challenges with our consultant, but we've gotten them back on track. And so what we're hoping is that early fall that we could be able to release the playbook. But we first got to make sure that we get a final product that we can present to the mayor and we can present to this council before we can make anything public. But that is our goal. It's something we was hoping that we could have in play at the beginning of this next fiscal year.
I was hoping that we could have it at play during the budget season so we could look at this so we can know the direction of our plan so we could just make a few additional decisions. But you're saying early fall is now the shifted date.
Yes, ma'am, that's
What issues were we having with the consultant?
Well, I mean, they missed some deadlines. There was some work that the playbook should have been in draft form finalized to us. We just got one draft version of this about 3 weeks ago. So they're about 90 days delayed in this process. And so I have had conversations with our consultants and expressed the importance of why we wanted this playbook in play by this budget year so that we all understood what the future and how we move the agency forward.
Were there timelines attached to the contract for this consultant?
I'm going to yield to Adam to kind of pick up his office been leading this, but yes, there was timelines that was attached.
I'm not sure what more to say than that. Yes, we had set expectations upon deliveries. There are different sequences of deliverables that were required as part of the contract. For whatever reason, those deadlines and deliverable dates have not been met. To Director Moore's point, we've continued to push and we'll continue to do so to get the product delivered as soon as possible, but also to a level that we're all happy with.
Thank you. I'm gonna shift to summer recreation camps, service 648. So in FY25, the target for enrollment within the summer camps was pretty conservative, if you ask me, but we finished it with an actual 5,796. But the FY27 number is just 3,000. Is that, again, a conservative estimate, or why exactly are we projecting that our summer camp target for FY27 is pretty much cut in half of what we actually did in FY25?
Great question, Councilwoman. And what I can say is that when we set the targets for the next year, we're going off of FY24 actuals, because we have not gotten at that time when we're setting these targets for the next year, the FY25 actuals, which showed the 5,700 in growth. What I can tell you is that it's something that we'll definitely try to look at a little close in this next fiscal year to try to figure out how we can better align, see if we can get the actual numbers a little faster to increase that number to be more in line. But by no means are we trying to set a conservative number or lowball that number. It's just we're basing it off of the actuals from 24 and looking at our targets for 25 as what we do to continue. So you continue to see the increase, but we did have a great summer last year. We was able to open some additional spaces, and we are now starting to get rec centers back online, which also has been a thing that we've wanted to be really careful in setting numbers, because we don't know with construction projects if those projects are going to meet the original dates or if those projects are going to be extended, such as a Gardenville Recreation Center that should have been operating this summer, but it looks like it's now more fall because of some of the challenge they had. So I think all those things play a factor, but it's something as we continue to expand our rec centers, we're going to continue to see this number, and we can definitely look and see how we can try to get a little bit more closer to the actual next year's budget.
I feel that it's very important, especially as we have conversations about youth safety, violence prevention, that we are not reducing expectations when it comes to these targets. What, just as a follow-up, which neighborhoods have the highest unmet demand for summer camp enrollment?
I don't have that in front of us, but I can get you that answer, Councilwoman.
If I can make that that'll be a committee request. Director, how long would it be for you to get that information? Would a week be good enough? Would a week be good enough to furnish that request? Okay, thank you. Okay, the request is for you guys to provide the neighborhoods with the highest unmet demand. You can give me the top 10, and that's across the city, obviously. We're gonna go to Councilman Schleifer.
Thank you. Can the equity coordinator come up for a question?
My equity coordinator's not here, sir. She's not here. But what's your question, sir?
All right, so Director, you've been here for 7 years, and I brought to your attention the day we first met that there is approximately 45 rec centers across the city, which equate to 3 per council district. There is 0 in the 5th district. Over your 7 years here, like we heard, there's been record investment, a lot of rec centers coming online, new ones being built, which is great. But there, again, has been 0 in the 5th district. And, and so I'd like for you, and I was hoping that the equity coordinator can answer this as well, why your agency has not made any of those investments into the 5th district. And what about the children of the 5th district? Do you feel that it's okay to build rec centers in close proximity to other rec centers across the city while just leaving out only 1 district in the entire city?
Well, Councilman, I'll start by saying that we're not building rec centers in close proximities. A lot of the infrastructure that was here when I got here 7 years ago. What I will tell you is several years ago, you asked for, well, what was shared in this hearing, in this chamber, was that we would do a vision study to determine the needs in the 5th district. That is part of the playbook, sir. And I can tell you based on what I'm getting from our consultants, that they have identified a need in the 5th district. However, the question also is, we don't want to continue, to your point, to build rec centers that's 4 blocks apart. C.C. Jackson is 4 blocks from the Public Safety Academy, so is that strategy to build a rec center at the Public Safety Academy, is that a smart strategy? I would say no. So what we've also asked our consultants as part of the playbook is to identify where is the most opportune location in the 5th district, so then we can present this plan, we can present it to administration, and we can present it to you, and we can all try to figure out how we find funding to support this rec center and where it is based on as far as the equity score and the need score that the playbook is also establishing. So it's not about kids of the 5th district. I'm committed to every kid in Baltimore. I want every kid to have recreational opportunities. If you recall, sir, we had a rec center at the James D. Gross Rec Center was in the Public Safety Academy for 18 months. Unfortunately, there was vandalism. We would continue to have that operation there. So it's not that we're not providing services to the 5th district, and we did for the last 18 months until somebody decided they wanted to vandalize the Public Safety Academy. So we will continue to be committed. We will continue to work with administration. We'll continue to work with your office. But what I will say is, until I get this playbook that really not only is informing that there's a need, but where we need to build it is extremely important, because we don't want to build rec centers that's 4 blocks apart. That is not the most effective and efficient way of doing things.
So as you mentioned with the rec center that was temporarily placed at the academy while the permanent home was being renovated, every time I popped in there was a tremendous amount of participation, which indicates a tremendous need. And so, when we spoke originally, you said it would, take you about a year or so to get your bearings and figure it all out. Now we're 7 years later, and you're telling me that you need to hear from a report 7 years later about what should be. So at what point are you indicating that you would expect to see some recreation offered in the 5th district? And as you know, the 5th district is quite large. It goes from North Roland Park to Howard Park. It covers about 4 miles across the top city-county line. And so there's a lot of communities and there's a lot of demand there. And so at what point would you say, since it's taking 7 years for you to figure out what should be done, how many more years would you say it's going to take you to actually get something done?
Well, sir, I'm not going to sit here and commit to a year, a date, or a time. What I can tell you is that when this playbook is introduced and it's adopted by this council, the administration, this council, and Rec and Park will determine, based on the assessments that's been done by our consultants, to determine the replacement when it should take place. But I also want to clarify for you, sir, is that you continue to state that we had an initial conversation 7 years ago, and I promise your rec center, sir, I don't promise anyone rec centers. I said we'll look at the needs and what we can do to address. And we have continued to offer programs in your district, sir. We have Rec on the Run that I spoke about in my opening. And the reason that we have Rec on the Run is you're not the only community, sir, that does not have recreational opportunities. And so what we do is we make sure that we're providing mobile services into these different communities. We're making sure that we have a rhythm and reels that we come into those communities to offer recreational opportunities as well, sir. So I understand your concern. I understand you're holding up that your district does not have recreational centers. But what I will say is the structure that's in place is something that's going to take time. And one of the things that we, as well as this playbook, has identified is the number of rec centers in our city and how we can be more efficient by looking at the size of our system and where we can repurpose our facilities. So I cannot sit here today and will not commit to 1 year, 2 years. What I can tell you is that it has been identified in the playbook. We will work with administration, this council, to determine how we move forward based on their recommendations from the playbook.
Yeah, before I get to my second question, just to follow up on that, with all due respect, bringing a U-Haul with some hula hoops and basketballs is not considered bringing rec to the district. But on that note, in this budget, Service 644, the administration, your office, you're seeing just under 10% increase. Can you explain why your administration, why your office should receive $1 million more this year over last year?
Thank you for that question. It's not, so as I stated, 644 is not the director's office. The director's office is part of many administrative functions within 644. For example, our capital team is doing amazing work, $225 million in investments. It's included in 644. As I stated in my presentation, the 3 positions are not new positions. One is our Chief Informational Technology. So do we want to continue to have someone to lead our information technology team? Absolutely, I would hope so. Our human capital, human service business partner, we need to continue to be able to support human capital. So what we did, sir, is that we moved general fund money and moved those positions to general fund so that we can use state funding for more real-time expenses in those areas. So there is no decrease that's been stated in the park maintenance budget. If you look, park maintenance budget, recreation budget, everybody's budget is increased. So that $1 million is not coming to the director's office. That $1 million is being used to support the COLAs and everything else amongst every service area in Service 644. So if that $1 million doesn't happen, then I'm not sure what I'm gonna do without a chief of IT or human resource business partner or administrative analyst. But I wanna stress to everyone, those are not new positions. Those are existing positions that have been in place for 3 years or more.
So how many positions is covered under that $1 million?
I'm not sure. I mean, I can tell you it's the 3 positions, and then I assume everything else is just increasing OPIs. But I will yield to BBMR if I missed something.
Mara James for BBMR. In the budget book, we talk about how those 3 positions are approximately $400,000. And then there's an additional $300,000 from an innovation fund award that's funding 3 positions to support the agency's capital projects. And I can get more, and then so that's the breakdown that I have right now of that one.
So that's 6, so if I heard you correctly, so that's 6 positions.
3 positions are $400,000, which is that shift of state funding from the Project Open Space to general fund, from park maintenance, horticulture, and services, and then the 3 positions from the innovation fund for capital projects.
Okay, and that was how much?
The innovation fund is 300,000. I'm sorry, that is actually not general fund, I'm being told. So I'll get the breakdown for you right now of the 1 million.
Okay. And then the rest, I assume the 300,000 is COLA?
There is COLA, yeah,
Okay. And at what percentage is that calculated?
3.
3%, okay. Thank you.
Councilman Gray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, before we start, I just want to give kudos and flowers to Rec and Parks for the incredible work that you guys just do across the city. When we think about the whole, this whole holistic ecosystem that we're trying to create for, to bring down violence in the city, I don't think we understand how important and how centered Rec and Parks is in reducing that violent crime in our communities. And so when we think about like every youth program event, athletic league, the midnight rec runs, the summer camps, and overall the community gatherings and opportunities for them, Rec and Parks is usually at the heart of it. And so I just want to thank you for playing a part in declining crime rates and changing the narrative a lot of times for what people want to perceive our youth as instead of what they actually are. Also want to give a quick shout out to Ashley Bush and Miss Green, over for the event they had in my district this past weekend, the Bourbon and Bacon. I attended and it was a great event. My ask is for it to be in the 8th district every year. I know that can't happen, but I would love for you guys to be there as often as possible. As a follow-up to, I think in part, what Councilman Schleifer was asking, educational grants transferred $600,000 to Rec and Parks to centralize recreation programming costs. How many additional program slots or sites does that funding support? And how are equity and geographic access considered in programming decisions?
Good morning, Karen Jordan, Deputy Director of Recreation. That funding is allocated across the city through all 48 sites. And I'm gonna defer to my Chief of Programming to discuss the number of programs.
I can repeat the question if you need it. Yep. Yeah. So the educational grants that, the 600,000 that was transferred to Rec and Parks to centralize recreational programming costs, how many additional program slots or sites does that support? And how are equity and geographic access considered in programming decisions?
Good morning, Kendra Moore, Chief of Programming. And so I didn't hear what Karen actually said, but as far as program selection, our center directors at all of our locations actually have the opportunity to select from a programming menu the vendors in which they would like to work with throughout the year. So that typically provides programming for both our fall and spring. And then we do that money also supports some of our programs throughout our summer program time as well.
And are you guys still partnering with Volo Kids to provide free programming across Baltimore City?
I will defer that back to Deputy.
And just in general, how are we partnering
Yes.
with these types of programs that they're offering free programming for our kids and they have the infrastructure? Are we partnering with Volo and other programming partners like that?
Yes, sir. We're partnering with Volo. We partner with Friends of Patterson Park. We offer free soccer there in Patterson Park as well as Little League Baseball. So we are continuing to partner with any partners that are willing to help support and offset our costs when it comes to programming.
Thank you. And the Gwynns Falls Lincoln Park, as everyone knows, is the largest park in Baltimore City and the second largest woodland park in the United States. Can you give me a breakdown of what maintenance is covered by the $2.6 million allocation? And are there any other planned capital projects slated for Lincoln Park? And I guess in that you can also talk a little bit about what is, I guess, coming up the pike with the Gwynns Falls Lincoln Park City-State Partnership?
Well, I can tell you that I think I'll start with the latter of your questions. I think the legislation did not approve the state park, but instead what we're doing is working with DNR to see how we can enhance some opportunities. I believe there's a $2 million grant that's being offered. And as part of that $2 million grant, we're going to look at how we can enhance and continue to improve the trails. If you have been in the trail system, the Gwynns Falls trails are some of the oldest trails that was established. And so we have to now go back and continue to improve on those. We did have a little over $1 million last year that we worked with partners and people to improve the trail area near Ben Carton. The 2.6 million, and this is something that we're gonna be addressing as part of the playbook, is I think sometimes the confusion is when these budgets are named after the largest parks. But this 2.6 million is to maintain all, in this case, in Gwynns Falls, they have roughly about 80 parks. So that 2.6 is spread out throughout that entire park system for Gwynns Falls. And what is normally done is just the general maintenance of SRs, service requests, making sure that the grass is properly cut weekly for those areas. There's not a lot of, when you take away the grass contract, when you take away some of the SRs, there's not a lot of money left for capital improvements. But what we try to do is look at our capital budget and invest in that route. And so I'm excited. I think you saw the new pavilion that's there. But now we're getting ready. I believe it's either we're bidding or we're awarding. We're getting ready to award the turf field. That's on the corner there. That's going to be a much needed improvement. And then a couple of years ago, we was able, during the granite pipeline, we was able to use funding to resurface the tennis courts. So we're going to continue to try to find ways that we can enhance that park, being the second oldest forested land, and also having some of the oldest trail systems in the city. But I just wanted to highlight that 2.6 really encompasses the entire district, not just Gwynns Falls.
Thank you for that answer. And I also want to highlight that there is also capital improvements coming to some of the community parks that are also surrounding Gwynns Falls Lincoln Park. I think often we always think about the big park attractions and not realizing that there are communities that are right next to it. Like my house is literally right next to the park, and that park right outside my house is also getting a nice facelift, a much needed facelift that the community is really excited about. So thank you.
Yes, and now to your point, Seminole Avenue, also James Moses, geez, can't think of the part where the Charm City Buccaneers play. We just put a new playground there. So we're going to continue to invest in those small parks. I think that's important that we do that.
Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to you and your team for our new pool at Coldstream. I'm really excited about it. Also for dealing with all of the logistics that we've had to deal with on the Reach Field. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I have a couple questions. One is on Service 648 Community Recreation Centers. There's a item in the book that says it's $2.2 million in community development block grant for and table games funding for the Dawson Center, STEM programs, et cetera, but it's not listed up under special funds in the, and this might be a question for finance, in the rest of the, like where is it? Is this CDBG that's coming from DHCD in order to do this? Where it's not in the special funds line item?
Okay. You want me to start? Sure. Okay. Yes, the 2.2 is funding, that's CDBG funding, block grant funding coming from HABC, and the money that you see in the special revenues to project the table games revenue that we will possibly receive this year as well.
Okay.
So the
that might help explain it. So if it says here, community development block grant and table games. So if the special fund is table games, then the remainder is that federal funding from CDBG?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
got you. Math. It's amazing. Okay, thanks. I just wasn't, obviously wasn't sure which was which fund. So I'm glad to see that it's there. My other question was on page 386, service 651, in terms of our recreation for older adults. And I have to say, we have like 5 agencies that have services for older adults. It might be something that we should think about in terms of making sure that all of that is coordinated, so that our older adults are, and us, have understanding of what all the services are, and there might be some concentrated effort there. But I noticed that under attending citywide senior programming, the target in the actual in 2025 was 16,000. The target was 20,000, and then this year's target is super low at 4,000. Can you explain, is this a typo, or is it something that we're trying to regroup? What's happening here?
Yes, ma'am, great question. So as we continue to define and clean up our data, one of the things that a lot of these numbers was duplicated, multiple entries and multiple people come. And so what we've reduced as 4,000 is the number of actual seniors that will attend a facility at least one time, instead of continuing to have the larger attendance numbers that increase by multiple attendance. It's just the number of seniors that attend one time.
So is the data going to be cleaned up for the rest of the years so that we actually are comparing apples to apples and not seeing that we know that the 16,000 was like the actual numbers of attendance as opposed to the number of attendees.
Right.
Right? There's two different things.
Right.
So this data is going to be cleaned up?
I'm not sure if I know going forward we're going to clean it up, but to go back, I'm not sure if we would clean those up in future budget books, or we just want to make sure that going forward that we clean those numbers up, that we're consistently seeing it going forward versus going back and trying to clean the others. But I will yield to BBMR if that's.
As a part of the summer, we're doing a lot of the performance planning with agencies, so I think this will be a detail that'll be worked out as a part of that. But we will be looking at the methodology for all of the measures and assessing the data sources to ensure that moving forward, we're able to keep them aligned, and then seeing if we are able to look back at historical and piece that out together. But I don't know the details of this measure to speak for certain.
I guess I'll make a data request, Madam Chair, to have fiscal 24, 25, and 26 numbers of actual attendees, not the number of times that they attended, just so that I can compare apples to apples. Does that mean, it's just the last 3 years or 2 years that 3 years that I'm asking for, if that's all right. And I think a reasonable time frame would be, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Are your data people able to do that in that amount of time?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll give you 3 weeks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can you restate your full request, please?
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'm looking on page 386 in the budget book, and I'm looking for fiscal 24, 25, and 26 actual numbers of seniors that attended the senior programming, not the number of times that they attended, but that there's just sort of the seniors that actually participate in older adults that participate in the programs. And I'm happy to follow up in writing if that's helpful.
Thank you, Councilman Blanchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director, good to see you and your team. Let's see. Let's start with so the weekend rec center access conversation. So my understanding of it, and please correct me if I'm wrong when you say, but we shifted towards a model of having the 4 rec centers that would be the regional rec centers that would be open on weekends, and then the other rec centers would be permitted. This was a big cause of concern for a couple groups operating, particularly at Robert C. Marshall and Pennsylvania Avenue. Can you talk me through that, like what that strategy is, what we hope to be able to achieve, like what benefits we got out of it. Because you're just speaking personally, I remember I grew up in a small town in Louisiana that had a rec center that was like only open during school hours. And it always was like the bane of my existence that you couldn't go to the rec center unless you like skipped school or had an event, right? And so it wasn't thrilled, you know, to hear of the change. And I'm sure the reason for it would like to get a better understanding of that.
Yes, sir. I'll start and I'll yield to the deputy director. So as we continue to align our budget, we have to look at our resources and we have to look at our attendance. And so when this decision wasn't made lightly, but it was based on the data to look at the number of people that was attending the facilities on Saturdays. And where we saw the largest number of attendance was at our regional sites. And so it's 6 locations throughout the city that we are open 6 days a week. Our other facilities are open Monday through Fridays. But this summer, what we're doing because of, we want to make sure that we cover and make sure that there was no gaps. For our late night hypes on Friday and Saturdays, Robert C. Marshall, which is a neighborhood center, will come and play this summer so that our youth will have opportunities over the weekend. But that's how our decisions was made on what centers do we continue to expand. And it's something that we continue to look at. And if, similar to the late night heights, we went beyond just the regional centers because we saw there was some areas that of great concern that we need to make sure we cover. So that is the strategy that went behind it. We just looked at the data. The data was telling us, and the amount of resources that we're expending to have a facility open on Saturdays when you had low attendance, what was a better way of doing this. And like I said, we've seen increases in our regional sites, but at the same time, we're continually looking at the data to see if there's some adjustments that we have to continue to make. Did I miss anything on that?
He covered it all pretty well. I think that we also like to push our constituents to our regional facilities, our health and wellness centers as well. They're large and we can provide more programming there. But as the director stated, we really did look at data and the attendance at the sites to decide.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that I hear you on the pushing your residents to regional facilities, and I think, you know, like my maybe middle-class families living in South Baltimore can get to the Middle Branch, but if you look at the layout, like I think a lot of my families, my young people living in Central West Baltimore, like there's not something really close to there, and that's a harder push. And I'll also just note that the other impact of that, several different programs, 10, 12 sports, band practice, et cetera, that then now have to pay for a permit because the facility because the rec center isn't open, right? So I think that's, I get trying to optimize things, and like, we have a ton of rec centers, and if they're not being used gainfully and we think we can make more of an impact in other ways, but I would really encourage the department to look at if there's a couple examples like that. Certainly Robert C. Marshall is a particular concern of mine there. For my second question, so there was the effort BCP had rolled out the increased permit cost and then ended up walking those back. And I fully understand in general, right, that permit fees should be paying for the services that are being permitted for. And if we are like, hey, it costs more money than we're currently charging, then that it makes sense to me that whatever the youth league or rec league or whatever the group is that's using it, right, like we're aligning those things because they're paying for the service. Could you talk to what the plan is looking forward to figure out the situation, and then B, or actually maybe starting with, how does BCRP decide what the appropriate costs are and ensure that those go to actually using the facilities that things are being paid for? Because what I got a lot of feedback from leagues in my district was like, hey, like we don't want to pay more, but if we're getting a better service, you know, we'll pay more, but we're not super optimistic that we're going to be getting a better service.
Thank you, Councilman Blanchard, for that question. So yes, we did roll back the fees. We're working closely with finance now and their consultant to look at fees, but I will tell you that we have not increased permit fees since 2016. But to your point, one of the things that I've been focused on with our team is we have to look at, as I stated earlier, Service 649, they're pretty much heavily dependent on revenues to cover their expenses. But also, we need to figure out how we can start investing more back into our maintenance. And so one of the agreements that I've shared with finance and our team is that as we look at these fees going forward, a percentage of this has to be put back into deferred maintenance. Because when you have over 170 plus athletic fields, and technically I have 4 FTEs assigned to turf management. That's a lot of facilities. So what we want to be able to start looking at strategically, how do we take those 4 people, if we're not going to grow the manpower, and partner and bring in maybe some contractor services to help offset some of that cost to help maintain some of those fields. So that is our goal, is to use that revenue to go back into properly funding and helping to improve our maintenance across the city.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, and I think that that's something that if that gets, effectively communicated out and there's feedback from the, all the, like I said, the little leagues and rec leagues and whatnot, that use these services a lot to explain that, hey, we haven't increased it in a long time and we're increasing and it's going to go toward this, because every league owner has a frustration with some state of repair type thing, and that would, I think, go a long way there. Follow-up question, there's the permit fees, and then there's the staffing of the permit office, and I think recently we were gapped a couple positions in there. What is the current, what's the current situation in the permitting office, and when do we hope to be at full capacity there?
Great question, sir. That job posting's gone out 3 times now. It's yielded. We're reimagining the scope of that job, because for some reason the people that are applying, you would think a permit tech should have basic fundamental experience, should be able to apply, but the current scope has 3 or 4 years of experience, and so it's eliminating a lot of people. And because that position is over multiple agencies, we just can't change it by ourselves. So our goal, I've asked our HR team to look at us reclassifying. There we go. Reclassifying those positions so we can try to fill that office. But currently there's 2 vacancies in the permits office, but we're eagerly optimistic with this reclass that we'll be able to look at the scope and try to get those positions filled. But in the meantime, we're filling those vacancies with our internal positions.
Okay, thank you, Director. Yeah, because obviously just the challenge of permitting of itself is also, those things were kind of a double whammy of frustration, I think, for a lot of our frequent flyers on the permitting process. And then, Madam Chair, if I can make a quick committee request for the cost of full annual maintenance for 1 grass football soccer field. If I could have that within 14 days.
I just want to follow to clarify. When you say maintenance, are we talking about aerating? We're talking about overseeding? We're talking about fertilizing? Are we just talking about cutting grass, lining field? Like, I think if I can get a little bit more details, then at least we'll be able to give you something that's more accurate and in line with what you're asking.
Absolutely, yeah. I think if you could do it, just to have the response by line item of what the standard process of aerating, fertilizing, whatever the mowing schedule is, lining, yeah.
We've been joined by Vice President Middleton. And as a quick follow-up, when you're talking about deferred maintenance, when we go to, what is this service? 646, our targets are very low at 50% of resolving the facility maintenance service request on time. What is the cost to get that up to 75%?
That's something we'll have to look at, Councilwoman, but what I can tell you is that service, which is 912, which is why I'm happy that we was able to pull that out. They currently have 15 people in the entire operation to maintain 267 parks, 23 swimming pools, and all of our facilities. We maintain all of our facilities in-house. And so
Right, so did you make any requests to the administration for additional pins for this, for 646 or even for 912? I know that was recently broken up.
yeah, we
Into two
did make requests this year and was approved for the 6 positions to get us some of our specialized positions like a plumber and HVAC tech in-house to help offset some of the costs that we're expending. So where our people are not filling in, we lean heavily on contractor services to provide those services for us.
So even with the additional positions, the targets haven't changed. It's still 50%. So we know that and we're happy about the capital improvements. We're happy about the new rec centers, the new parks. When we're building those new rec centers and building those new parks, we know that can increase our maintenance backlog. So is there a plan when we're putting these new facilities in place to balance that out so we're not adding to the maintenance backlog?
Great question. Yes, ma'am. As we bring on new facilities, we're getting support with staff. And for example, Parkview Recreation Center that just recently opened, Parkview, beyond just having a rec center, has a large green space and park. So what we've added there is a full-time FTE that's dedicated to that area to not just clean the inside, but also focus on the outside. Some of our larger facilities that we're bringing online, we are asking for those resources, the money for the Gardenville and the Logic Commons. As you recall, that is going to be an amazing, not only recreation center, but it's going to be an amazing space with probably the largest play space in our agency. So as we bring these things online, we are asking administration a year in advance of the facility opening to increase that support with staffing to properly cover those. But it does not address what you're saying, and that's something that we're going to continue to focus on. But one of the things that's identified in the playbook, and I don't want to keep on the playbook because we need to deliver the playbook and then we can share those things, but it talks about some of the things you're talking about, what it would take for us to properly support and resource the agency and also balancing out the needs. I think it's going to be a juggling act of how we increase staff and resources, but also how we look at our current operational facilities and see how we can be
Yeah,
more
how we're going to
aligned.
maintain it.
Yeah.
50%, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough. I know you're working with what you're working with, but it's just not, it's not good enough. I'm going to likely come back to it. I'm going to get to Councilwoman Porter. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Director, I have a quick question about the urban forestry budget. Tree canopy across District 10 is among the city's lowest. What are the FY tree planting targets for District 10, and what is the current tree canopy coverage for District 10 versus citywide? And does the planting plan use environmental justice criteria to prioritize the lowest canopy neighborhoods?
So I have Matt Rescott that's here. So Matt, I'm going to yield that question to you to answer for the councilwoman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Matt Rescott, Chief of Forestry. Councilwoman, I need to get back to you on some of the specific data for your district. I do have some data as far as work orders go, but as far as the tree planting, but that's something I can get to you. I will say that our process, both within forestry and with our primary planting partners such as Tree Trust and Blue Water, there is a heavy focus on equity. We basically are looking at a combination of socioeconomic as well as urban heat island, where we prioritize our plantings kind of throughout the city. But specifically for your district, if
Yeah,
I
that-
can,
that
I
can
can
be-
follow up with the
Yeah, that
answer.
can be an official committee request. If I can get the District 10 specific data for tree canopy. I'm sorry? Oh, okay, and also District 8 as well. And then also the planting plan for any environmental justice criteria. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman, if you stated it, can you restate your deadline?
Sure, if it can be 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rec and Park. It's always good to see you here. I want to start really simply, just a request for a performance measure moving forward. I know that's asking you to collect, but I suspect it's a performance, I suspect it's numbers you already track. It's just, for some reason, it's just not in the book. And that is when we're talking about, special facilities, so 649, 1 second. Oh, I'm right in front of it. Talking about 649, right now the only thing we're tracking, at least reporting here performance measure wise, is cost recovery, and I appreciate cost recovery. It's, you know, it's good when we have revenue that's helping to pay for our expenses and things like that. It strikes me that just as important, if not more, anyway, also important is the number of participants who are passing through our, in this case, the Meyer Soccer Pavilion, Mount Pleasant Ice Rink, Mimi DePietro, things like that, Shake and Bake. I realize some of these are operated, so for example, Duburn's Arena in the district isn't really operated with city programs, and so maybe you don't have, but for those that we do operate ourselves and aren't handled by a contractor, would love to see those numbers and see how they track over time and make sure people are using them. So that's just simply that's not a committee request right now. It's a request for you all in the future when it comes to reporting out on these. Would love to know how many people are making use of them. My second question, and if you do have those numbers around, obviously feel free to send them to me, but I think more important is to be able, for all of us to be able to look at that and be able to kind of measure success in part by that way, not just kind of how much money we've managed to generate off of that. In youth sports, in 647, youth and adult sports. I don't mean to neglect adults there. So I take note that between FY24 and FY25, we dropped by 1,100 participants, that we had a target of 4,000. This is for youth in particular. We had a target of 4,000 for FY26 and dropped that to 27. I'll have a follow-up question, but is there anybody from the team, Director Moore, or somebody from your team, able to speak to kind of the slowdown we've seen in youth sports participation in the last few fiscal years and kind of what's behind that?
Yes, I'm gonna yield the Deputy Director of Recreation.
As mentioned before, the FY27 target numbers were based off of the FY24 actuals. So that's how we came with the 3,600, but I would defer to the athletic director who is here for, if he would like to add anything about the program specifics.
Quinn Matthews, Chief of Athletics. I think it was the same issue that we had before with the duplication of numbers. So now we're looking more at unduplicated numbers when we track data.
That was in reference to the senior programs we were talking about before. It doesn't, I would maybe see and understand that if the adult sports numbers were showing something similar, but I don't see that. I don't see evidence that that's what's happening here. I mean, so that being said, I would think, particularly with youth sports programs, like if I had one of my kids signs up for 2 different sports, I would expect them to be counted twice. Right, I wouldn't expect them to be counted for every practice they showed up to, but if they're playing spring baseball and fall soccer, I would expect them to be counted here twice, because that's really what we're looking for. So is that not how we're counting it right now?
So the data is broken out differently. We do count them differently under sports, different sports. But when we look at it, when we present it, the numbers are all combined. We don't break them out individually.
If I can just jump in. So, Councilman, to your point, what we've been really doing over these last 3 years is really cleaning up our data. And one of the big challenges, too, sometimes is programs that are not directly in-house that we run, how we track those programs by asking our teams to submit rosters of their participants so that we can track those numbers. But more of our in-house programs that we run directly is we run the soccer program and Chief of Athletics, please correct me if I missed something, but directly we run the soccer program, the baseball program at Patterson. We run pretty much all the basketball leagues, but the majority of our other programs, our football program, are done in-house. Everything else is contracted out with other youth groups that's running those, and so we're still trying to figure out how we get that data as well from those groups.
Sure. I appreciate that. I understand there's a distinction between the programs we run ourselves and I was only expecting you to count the ones that are in the programs that Rec and Parks is directly running, which you can track through the online registration system that every parent fills out when they register their kids, right. Which works really well and it functions well. My fear is that, and I think I'm not sure that I've gotten an answer yet from this. I think that youth sports participation has actually gone down in our programs. I think these numbers reflect that. I've seen that in Patterson Park, especially as a baseball program that was built up by your staff in a really great way for 5 years, was abandoned last spring to shift to try to shift and start a new program for flag football that not enough people signed up for, and then we didn't have any youth sports in Patterson Park last spring. And so a program with about 120 kids and a dozen adult volunteers and coaches that had been built up by Rec and Parks for multiple years was dropped, and all those kids are now participating. Almost all those kids are now participating in a South Baltimore Little League and driving across the city because that was the only option they had. So, and looking at the number of staff we have here, 8 staff, and seeing how they're broken out, it's not nearly enough staff to foster and build. I mean, I'm not faulting our guy. He was a great guy in Patterson Park who made that choice. He was trying to grow a program. There was interest and excitement. He tried to respond to it. But because we don't have enough staff, he had to drop an existing program that had more than 100 kids and a bunch of adults who are committed to its success. I just don't see here, and this isn't on you. I mean, we're the ones who are responsible for making sure you have the resources to pull it off. I just don't see here, in terms of number of staff and number of participants, both for youth and adults, but especially for youth, anything robust enough to actually say we're coming close to providing real opportunities for young people in the city. At least, I mean, we have our recreation centers, which is different. I mean, we have programs that are taking place in our rec centers, which is a different budget line, and thankfully that's well funded, and hopefully that reflects great participation. But in terms of this service area, the staffing and the budget seem anemic, and I'm concerned that our participation is going in the wrong direction across multiple years. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I want to say, even with the program in Patterson Park, the soccer programs has increased each year. The baseball program was solely based on volunteer coaches, and we lost a lot of volunteer coaches as kids aged out. So that helped to the detriment of that program because we're heavily based upon volunteers. Also, with our rec center programs, our division is responsible for a lot of the programming that is also done in the rec centers. So sometimes those numbers are not looked upon in ours, but they come from the rec center numbers as well. But historically, youth sports is down across America. So
youth sports what?
Youth sports numbers are down recreationally across America. So yeah. With the privatization of youth sports, so it's something that we have to look at as well.
No, and I appreciate you mentioning that. I mean, I think obviously by far the bulk of youth sports in the city of Baltimore, which is handled by private, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit operations, and adult sports too. And I understand there's a market for that, and it functions, it's enriching some people, but it's also giving people an opportunity to get out and play and use our parks, and it's generating some revenue back to us to help maintain those parks. So I'm not saying that's wrong. I do think precisely because of the access you mentioned and the equity that we talk about here, that Baltimore City Rec and Parks has a really vital role to play in making sure that that communities that aren't well served by the market, right, by the youth sports market, either geographically or financially, that like we're coming with a really different, the same model that you all have and the same values you all have and bring to every part of your operation, that we're doing that here as well, precisely because there's tons of kids in neighborhoods that are left out by the kind of the market-based approach. And so we are providing a vital public, you all every day are providing a vital public service there. And I want to make sure we're heading in the right direction, both from a funding and a participation standpoint.
And I'll just close with, thank you for those points. And I think what we have to try to start continuing to do is, to your point, is 8 positions. And so how do we continue to do more to attract the kids? Because travel sports is just, it's taken over throughout this country, but there are kids who, to your point, that still want grassroots sporting opportunities. So I think it's something we just got to continue to look and see how we explore, how we properly utilize our resources, and how we can possibly get Mr. Matthews additional resources to help expand the grassroots program, which is pretty much what you're saying, what you're talking about.
Great. Thank you both very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, Director, I want to thank you and your team for getting back to me with my questions regarding Madison Rec Center. That way I didn't have to waste them here at this time. So that way I can ask other questions. But it was definitely a question I was going to ask. But my first question is, happy to see money allocated to the Dawson Center and how we were able to work that out creatively to make sure the need in the community is met. But can you give me a timeline or description on like how those renovations are going to happen? Whether or not it's housed under DHCD or is whether or not something you all are handling, because I know it's like a little bit of back and forth and just the timeline on when we can kind of get in there and start making those renovations so the kids can, get access to the things they need.
So great question. The 2.2 million is for operations.
Oh.
So it has nothing to do with the renovations of the Dawson Center still falls on DHCD. While we took the programming on, we have not taken the building on because it has not been brought back up to operational standards. So I can't answer their timeline for the Dawson Center, but I think also we have to be strategic because Madison is one block south of that center. But I know the significance of the Dawson Center and that home. But we'll continue to work with our sister agency, and upon those renovations being done, then that Dawson Center staff could be relocated from Madison back to the Dawson Center itself. But unfortunately, I can't give you an answer on the timeline of their construction.
Okay.
Of the center.
No, thank you. And my next question is, as I look at like the funding allocation per rec center, I noticed when a new rec center is built, the funding allocation increases substantially. And it almost goes from, in the previous funding for that was really low. And as we put new rec centers online, I just can only anticipate these numbers for maintaining our rec centers and programming. Everything is going to keep getting higher and higher. I just want to make sure we're looking at, like the chairwoman said earlier, making sure we're able to maintain these new rec centers and facilities. Have there been besides, other than just asking for additional funding for the previous year, is there conversations around just making sure we have the revenue every year? Because eventually, the answer could be no, well, we don't have it. And I just want to make sure we are making sure the department has the money they need to not only run the programming, but maintain all these beautiful facilities that are coming online.
No, great question again, and I'm going to refer to it as our 10-year strategic plan really talks about how we have to scale back and be strategic with our resources going forward. So to your point, as we bring on new rec centers, we're properly staffing those and budgeting those for the number of people and the size of the facilities that we're building. But then in the future, how do we balance the budget in a sense, and making sure that while we continue to support our recreational operations, but at the same time, how do we scale back slightly some in recreational operations to then put more towards maintenance for our facility maintenance, our park maintenance in those areas and scaling those areas up. So it's a balancing act that this 10-year strategic plan really speaks about and talks about over the next 10 years, how we can advance this. And at the same time, also looking at ways that we can generate more revenue, utilizing some of our spaces as rental spaces and making sure that we're charging people properly for those spaces, for using those spaces and utilizing that revenue to go put back into the operations of those different facilities. So there's plans, there's discussions, there's conversations happening, but we just gotta get this plan out the door so we can really speak about the future, how we move recreation forward.
Yep, and that was kind of, thank you for that answer, the crust of whether or not there was revenue generating ideas, also things you all are thinking about. So glad to hear it's something you all are looking at. Sounds like a lot of my concern and questions are a lot within this 10-year strategic plan. So the playbook, so, look forward to, once again, seeing it when it rolls out, because of so much of our questions rely on this plan and the direction that we're going in. I just can't stress any more further how important it is that we get this out by fall time. So thank you for the answers and entertaining me. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just knowing how much work went into the 10-year plan and the playbook and how many references, we keep hearing it's just disappointing that deadlines have been missed by the consultants. All I'm hearing every time you say the playbook is how somebody should be running us our money back for these missed deadlines. Council President Cohen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Moore. I want to pick up where I believe Councilmember Porter had spoken about tree canopy and knowing the impact of the climate crisis, knowing that our trees play such a vital role in mitigating heat and heat deaths on our street. I want to lift up that a report from Maryland Matters found that last summer, Maryland hit a 10-year high in heat deaths, including 8 members of our Baltimore community. In fact, Baltimore City had the most heat-related deaths of any county in the state last year. In 2007, the city set an ambitious goal of expanding our tree canopy to 40% by 2037. I am frustrated to learn that we have grown our tree canopy by less than 2% since we set this goal, despite spending around $96 million and planting thousands of trees. Our tree canopy currently hovers around 27%. We have just over a decade to get to 40. Director, I am grateful for all the work we spoke about previously around Carrie Murray and outdoor learning. However, why is our tree canopy such a persistent challenge?
Councilman Cohen, great question. I'm going to yield to Matt Rescott so he can provide your response on the tree canopy growth.
Thank you, Director. And thank you, Council President. That's a really good question. It's certainly something that we talk about often in forestry. It's just the state of our trees. There's a lot of challenges in growing canopy in urban environment. So we are certainly on board with reaching that goal, and that is what we work towards every year. And we've been planting between 5,000 and 7,000 trees per year, primarily street trees, but also in park trees. But we've had, I think just in the last 10 years, a couple big things. One was the emerald ash borer, which unfortunately in the late teens took out a significant number of trees, both street trees, individual park trees, and some of our forests. So when we talk
sorry,
about—
could you say that again? I missed.
Sorry. Ash trees are affected by an insect called the emerald ash borer. That was something that came over from Asia. It hit us here probably started like 15 years ago, but it really fully went into effect in the late teens, and we lost the majority of our green and white ash trees across the city, and as did the state. We treat several hundred of them to maintain them, but I just bring that up as one example of one of the challenges with growing the canopy is a major factor that happened over the past 10 years. But I think when we talk about 40%, I think that is a really good goal. We do have some neighborhoods that are actually over 40%. The problem is we also have neighborhoods that are much lower. So I think it probably warrants a bigger discussion in how we get to that goal, because I do think the reality is that we probably need to plant well more than 7,000 trees a year. It's probably maybe 50,000 trees a year for a number of years to actually get to that point. And I think we've done some work recently in trying to kind of calculate what it would actually take to get to that goal. And I don't have the exact numbers, but it was the number of trees we'd have to plant per year is pretty staggering.
Okay. I'm going to ask Director Moore, this agency come back to this council in 10 weeks with an updated analysis of our tree canopy program. I will just state, in addition to heat deaths, not having trees creates unsafe, unhealthy conditions for kids, adults, and older adults in our city. If Baltimore is truly headed toward the renaissance that we all believe we can become, having areas that remain tree deserts throughout our city is just unacceptable. And when it comes to growth, development, how we're building housing, how we're thinking about neighborhoods, tree canopy is incredibly important, not just for the shade that it provides, but again, when we think about connection to nature, particularly in a city that has deep environmental challenges, I just think this is a really critical component. And so, as a committee request, Director, I'm gonna ask you to come back in 10 weeks from now with a 1 to 2 page analysis of where we are and how we can align in order to reach our goal. Is that reasonable?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Could I add, I'm sorry, could I just add one thing to that? I should have mentioned this with Councilwoman Porter's question earlier, but we actually are starting a new tree inventory. So the last time the city did a full tree inventory, and that by full, I mean all street trees and all park trees. The last time that was completed was probably 8 or 9 years ago. So we desperately needed an update to that, but we actually just awarded a contract. It's going to take a few years to get done, but we're going to cover the city in quadrants, and we're going to have that will present a much better picture for us to really assess what we need. Part of that inventory is also going to be to identify potential planting locations so that we can further maximize the locations where we do put new trees.
I assume when you say a tree inventory, that means you are going around the city mapping and counting trees?
Yep. Yeah, we're doing, and we opted for a traditional boots on the ground approach to this. So starting this summer, we're going to have people going around and actually surveying each tree.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Director, I'm gonna go back to, I'm going back to the service request at 50%. For this item, we hear a lot about these tiger teams. We hear a lot about these stats that are running through the Mayor's Office of Performance Innovation, all these other agencies. Is there any type of tiger team or stat for that is working on addressing the backlog, the maintenance backlog that we currently have.
We're working with the Tiger team right now on a forestry project. That's something I can discuss with administration, see if we can get support from the Tiger team to go in and look at our facility maintenance team, and share the concerns about looking at this backlog and how we can properly resource it and maintain it to get it to the 75% target that you're asking for.
The other item I want to explore, I know that one master HVAC, one master plumber, and these 4 apprentice positions are not going to be enough to support. It's just making a dent. It's not going to be enough to support. It's not enough to even change the projections right now. Can you guys furnish me a cost? I want a cost, or what it's going to take to get this to 75%, because I know that with these delays being down, like we're talking about programming, that we're not able to run through our recs with these centers, knowing, because I have a community center with a plumbing issue in Bayview that's on a backlog right now. So as a committee request, give me an estimate, give me a cost on what it's going to take to get this target to 75%. Facility maintenance, the percentage of facility maintenance, SRs for recreation centers complete on time, that's at 50%. And also the facility maintenance here in service 646 as well as service 912, they split them up. I'm trying, like, I want to be reasonable about it for you guys to do this. How much time do you think you guys need for that one? To just put something together? 2 weeks, okay. So our deadline is going to be 2 weeks. My second committee request is that I want to know which recreation centers had the highest volume of unresolved maintenance requests, and I want them broken down by if it's a health issue, a safety issue, HVAC issue, plumbing issue, lighting issue, ADA access issue, or just another water intrusion issue. So I'm gonna run that back. Which recreation centers had the highest volume of unresolved maintenance requests based on health, safety, HVAC, plumbing, lighting, ADA access, or any other type of water intrusion? And again, I want to be reasonable with the timeline. Can you guys provide an appropriate time that you'll be able to get that information back to the committee?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Edward Wheeling, Deputy Director of Parks. I am confident we can get those numbers to you within a 2-week time frame.
Okay, so both 2 weeks. We're going to go to Councilman Schleifer.
Thank you. Director, we heard from multiple of our colleagues here about maintenance and keeping up with requests. One of the capital projects that had come online in recent years was the Jones Falls Trail coming up into my district. We get complaints about it all the time. And so it really just begs the question what your plan is to maintain and provide upkeep to these assets that keep coming online. So that asset, for instance, has a lot of problems, a lot of safety hazards on it, a lot of issues. We can't get any clear answers or timelines on when any of those repairs will be made, and that's just simple, pieces of wood that needs to be replaced. And so what is your plan to maintain these assets and things like the Jones Falls Trail, and what should our expectation be when we bring an issue to your attention of a hazard or a repair that needs to be made? What's a reasonable timeline for those repairs to be made?
Well, I want to respond to the Jones Falls Trail, sir. The Jones Falls Trail had a continuous maintenance issue.
Unfortunately, when that trail was designed, it was designed through a heavily forested area with a lot of dead trees, sir. And we have maintained the trail, but we can't continue to repair and then another storm come or another tree falls down. So we are trying to work with our partners at the Mount Washington Hospital, who owns the trees, to determine what they're gonna do to address some of their fallen trees. And I will tell you, sir, I wish it was as simple as just replacing wood. The current suspension system that's also there and the post that you see run along that trail also is not just a simple process. We had a contractor that originally started out repairing that trail, and we had issues and we refused to pay them to continue to work because they was not performing it, sir. So we have been working to try to address it, repair the decks where we can, but the railing and the suspension system itself is not an easy system. And so I just 2 weeks ago had a meeting with Mount Washington Hospital to talk about what can we do to address the fallen trees that continues to fall in that area. But it's a beautiful trail, but to your point, some things do we continue to repair, and then next week is another tree falls and we're back trying to repair the same thing. So I just want to clarify, it's not that we're avoiding that repair, we are repairing it, sir, but there's continuous hazards in that area that we have to address with our partners at Mount Washington Hospital or the property owners of that area, but we're not avoiding it, we are repairing it, sir. But I'll yield to Ed Willing. He can talk a little bit more about the most recent damages and what we're doing to address that, sir, right now.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Good morning, Councilman. So like Dr. Moore mentioned, we did have a meeting with Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital a few weeks ago, and we talked about the current condition of the trail and what Director Moore explained regarding the issues we were having with the contractor. What we've been doing over the last few months is reaching out to different contractors to get quotes on how to completely redo the railing system for that trail, so it doesn't include the cables. The cabling system is the difficult part of that railing system. The second contractor that we requested a quote from was unable to provide the materials to redo the cabling system, so they only provided us an estimate for the railing system, the wood part of the railing system itself. So since then, we've reached out to another contractor and we're requesting quotes. We're waiting to meet with them on site now to walk it and then have a full assessment done.
So there's no ongoing contract that exists for those repairs? You're saying every time there's an issue, it needs to go through a full process to find somebody to make a repair?
Well, unfortunately, the city's fence contractor expired in February, the end of February. So we've been waiting on that to come back in place. I don't have a status on that yet. Though that contractor was able to give us the estimate for the wood portion of the railing, but they in turn had to reach out to another contractor to help them provide an estimate for the cable part. So unfortunately, for the cabling portion of that trail, yes, it does have to be, it's specialized equipment, and it does have to need to be bidded out every time.
So is your plan to bring a contractor on board for routine maintenance? Or is it that anytime there's an issue, to have to go ahead and go through a whole process for each individual issue?
Well, part of that assessment that we're requesting is to have the entire railing system done. So at that point, it won't be specialized and it'll be more easily fixable. And at that point, we won't have to reach out for other estimates and have a specialized contractor come in. Hopefully, it'll be a contractor that'll be able to support us because the railing system will be a lot simpler.
I appreciate that explanation, and it makes sense, but it is obviously very troubling and concerning, when the community waited so as long as they did for that project to come online, and the excitement once it comes online, and then all of a sudden to be told, well, hey, the original plan and how it was done originally needs to, be scrapped, and a whole new, railing system needs to be put into place. So they're just living with that constant hazard.
I understand you, Councilman Slifer, but again, this was a project that was designed and started before my arrival. But I don't care about when I ride. The problem is we have a problem now. And the problem is we cannot continue the current suspension system. So what we want to do is fix the problem. We're asking for patience from the community. We're addressing the deck itself, but the railing system is another problem. I mean, and so our team is working out a strategy to redesign this. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate situation, but it's something that we have to do so that we can make sure that, to your point, that we're able to respond accordingly within a timely manner when we have this damage. Because what I do know is that the amount of trees that's still in that area, they're going to continue to fall because there's a significant amount of dead trees that's in that area. So to help us, I think it is us sitting down with our organization at the property of these trees and see what are they going to do to help us maintain their dead trees that can eliminate some of the maintenance issues that we're facing of the trees continuing to fall too. So I just think that that's just a dual effort, and I do appreciate the partnership with the Maryland Pediatrics Hospital for sitting down with us and talking. So it's beyond just us maintaining it. How can we prevent it? And the way we prevent it is how can the hospital help us address some of the dead trees that continues to fall.
You don't want me to keep going?
Councilman Gray.
Thank you. This is just to build on, if she would allow Councilwoman Ramos's requests, and I'm wondering how we track data across the entire agency to be able to paint a larger picture of how many residents we serve. So I would also like to add, it was right, yeah. So on that, so how are we tracking participation across all service numbers like aquatics, youth and adult sports, rec centers, recs for seniors, therapeutic recs, as well as events? Could we also have the information for that? Or is that something that we can pull off of Open Baltimore? And just overall, how are we capturing overall participation?
I mean, we can pull that data for you, but we're capturing it through our Civic Rec software for the participants when they come to our spaces. We're capturing that data, and we have quarterly meetings with the different operations to understand the data and what's happening. And if there's an area where we see a decline, we're asking them, what is the cause, what's the reason, and what can we do to try to address that need? But that's data that we rarely has available that we can share.
That sounds great. I think one of the things I know I'll ask for myself, I don't want to speak for my council, my council mates, but I think they would agree. The door is always open for you guys just to partner with us whenever there is a gap in at a rec center or any type of facility that is in our district. We would love to partner just to make sure that we can send the word out, like personalized flyers for certain communities or certain areas, or we can just uplift the information at our community meetings when we attend. So this isn't just a relationship where we're just asking of you guys to do things. I also want you guys to understand that when there are holes and there are ways that there are needs that can be filled, that you can reach out to us. And not everyone's going to probably agree to certain things, but there are things that I think that we could just partner together to make sure that all of the services are being utilized. Because I think sometimes there's a lack of education / notification of what's going on. Some people just don't know. And like one is, last year they did a great job letting me know, and this year they didn't, but I won't hold it against them. I know that just happened. But with City Catch for the trout, and that's something that I feel like we can just, if we send that out, I don't know how many more kids would sign up, but that's something I think that every kid in Dave District, if it's happening there, should have the opportunity to know about. And so we can always partner with each other for those types of events. So even the event this past weekend at Birds, Bacon, and Barbecue. So So we can, and so actually, I will pull that committee request. We can talk offline if you guys have that information to get it, and not to add on as to confuse Councilwoman Ramos's request. But I do just want to make sure that you guys know that we are actually here to help spread the word, spread the programming, and actually, help spread the message whenever there are gaps or holes when there's a program that you guys are trying to set up, and you're not seeing the participation that you guys need. Thank you.
Councilman Blanchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Slightly outside the 11th District, Director Moore, you know how enthusiastic I am and the whole Blanchard household is about the Druid Hill Lights, Highlighted Lights show. I know when I reached out, you said that we had not done it this past year because it was getting expanded and was going to be improved for future years. Can you talk through what that's going to look like?
I'm going to start, but I'm going to yield to Mr. Willen, who's leading that charge. But yes, sir, you're absolutely correct. We did take a year off to refocus the operations and look at the expenses and also figure out how we can expand it. And so with that, Mr. Willen's been working diligently to make sure that that comes back online this year. So, Mr. Willen, can you take that question, please?
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Thank you for that question, Councilman. So what we've looked at is reinventing or expanding Charm City Lights. So we've looked at two different options. And the first option was to begin the exhibit or the display show at the Rollins Conservatory and bring it in through the park that way, and then follow it along Swan Drive, and then bring it up to Red Road, and then make that left and go around Safety City, and then once you come back out in front of the maintenance yard or to the Druid Hill Bowl, then you make that left and then continue on the regular route. The second option we chose was to begin it at Mansion House Swan Drive and Mansion House, and then continue along the route that I just described. We looked at adding several different displays, larger displays, displays that actually cover more ground, more hanging displays. Also, we've looked at adding additional interactive displays to the bowl. So down there where the actual Christmas tree is, we looked at displays that families can kind of jump into, where maybe a reindeer or something where the face is out. So family can take pictures like that. We had looked at adding a sleigh and other larger displays as well for selfie stations and different things like that. So those are just some of the few things that we're looking at for Charm City Lights this year.
Thank you. And then follow up from a budgetary question perspective. Where does that land in the budget? And then how does the cost of, when you have something like this, or the bourbon and birds, that type of stuff, how does which I'm disappointed Councilman Gray didn't invite me to, but how does the cost get determined, and how do y'all think through how, because I'm totally on board with taxpayers subsidizing something like that. I'm just curious as to how that gets processed.
So basically to answer your question, that falls under the permits and special events, which is, I think it's 649. And what we try to do is look at the total budget and expenses and do a break-even analysis for the most part to try to cover that cost. And sometimes, of course, that ticket, because of the expense, can be, Birds, Bourbon, and Bacon was a success, but I think it was a $75 ticket, but it helps balance that out. But that revenue, along with Charm City Lights, has been a $5 per car. We're having to look at that too, right? Because that is an expense, but all of that falls under, I'm thinking I'm saying it right, I think it is 649, special permits and events is where that revenue is reflected, as well as the expense.
Okay, thank you. And then second question, going back to the great conversation about youth sports data collection and this broader conversation about data collection and whatnot, and I'm not seeing it on here, but the performance measure, I think it was like, there was like a youth sports participation metric. As you know, I'm very interested in middle school sports, and I'm very interested in how Rec and Parks, what role Rec and Parks plays in that. Can you talk through trends we're seeing specific to Rec and Parks involvement in middle school sports? And then I'll just say that something that I think would be worth pulling out as its own performance measure in the future would be how we have the number of participants enrolled in a youth sports program. I think it would be productive for future years to have number of participants enrolled in a youth sports program that is tied towards the city's middle school sports effort.
Yes, sir. And I want to stand corrected. It's 653 is where that revenue is generated, which is park programs and events. And so, yes, we continue to, we have a middle school sports coordinator that works for our chief of aquatics, and he continues to offer programming. I know we just finished volleyball. And so what we want to continue to do is to partner with the schools and figure out how we can increase those opportunities. As you can recall, I think sometimes is getting that collaboration and partnership and everyone being willing to work together. And sometimes that we face obstacles, but I feel right now we're more so working parallel versus working together. And I really will hope in the future that we can strengthen that collaboration. It's not like we haven't tried, but hopefully with new leadership in schools that we can strengthen that collaboration, that we can work closely together to offer middle school sports and figure out where the need in schools. I know they currently have some models that they're looking at, but coming to Baltimore from the South, middle school sports play a vital role in the development and growth in high school. And so that is something that I've been committed to and wanting to see grow, and I'm happy with what we've started, but I want us to continue to grow middle school sports. But that has to happen in collaboration with the school system to really see the attendance and the numbers that we need.
All right, thank you, Director. And I'll just re-note that I don't know if this is for BBMR or for the city administrator's team, that I do think that for future years having that spelled out as its own line item, just speaking as one council member, it's certainly something that I would really appreciate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I would accept Councilman Gray's data request as a friendly amendment to mine. So maybe we can work together on what that will look like, and we can send it over to the committee and to the committee and also to the department. And we'll follow up in writing if that's all right, Madam Chair. Director, we have certainly been spoiled with amazing playgrounds the last few years, and I'm really grateful. The Mary Pat Clark playground is very well used, and I'm really excited about, and I know that she would be very pleased. In the capital budget, though, I only see 1.5 million. Is that right? For playground maintenance. I know I'm supposed to be getting 3 playgrounds in my district. And so I'm curious, I'm sure that the rest of the members need to have playgrounds too. So 1.5 isn't really gonna do it. So what's the plan on playgrounds moving forward? I get that there's some partnerships, like the ones in Adams Park is a partnership with Kaboom. The one on Chestnut Hill was a previous request from a few years ago, so I'm hoping that money's already there. The Harwood Park playground, as well as Whole Springs, are the next ones that I'm going to be asking you for. So how are we planning on funding new playgrounds moving forward, since the ARPA funds are likely depleted by now?
So I got 2 people that's gonna probably take over for me, but I'm gonna start. That's either Ed, that can talk about recently what playgrounds are in design right now, and then Adam can talk about future. But to your point, Councilwoman, it's something that we're gonna continue to collaborate and partner. There's state funding that we're gonna try to help us offset some of our costs. It's something we'll continue to commit in our CIP budget, but I thought, Adam, there was money allocated for playgrounds in this year's budget, but he can confirm in a second. But I think we're just gonna have to do them in a way that's strategic, but at the same time, we was really excited to have the 26 playgrounds that was funded all at one time, but now we just got to figure out how we continue to maintain, how we continue to replace the 100, I think it's like 90 playgrounds we need to replace. But Adam, you want to start, and then Ed, I'll let you answer the additional about upcoming playgrounds.
Yeah, good morning, Adam Borman, Chief of Capital Development. The CIP kind of ebbs and flows when it comes to playgrounds and courts and things of that nature. Right now, we are coming kind of through the ARPA stage. Very proud of the ability to spend down $70 million in a short turnaround. And as a result, some of the projects that had been funded prior to that essentially took a back seat while we met those deadlines. We're now in the process of making sure that those projects are fully funded and able to be implemented in the next year or two. Having made tremendous progress with the 26 playgrounds, we are now looking at the conditions assessments of the others, also looking at, of course, equity and things of that nature to come out of the playbook and really point us in the correct direction for the next 10 years. So whereas FY27 may not have substantial funds for playgrounds, we are developing a plan with both condition and equity at the focus of that.
Thank you. So just as a follow-up, we'll see this number grow, I guess is what you're saying, as we plan through how we need to maintain the rest of our playgrounds, but I'm sure there's going to be new requests as well for brand new ones, like I have for the Chestnut Hill.
Yes, ma'am.
So that'll all be included in that.
Yep.
And so this 1.5 in the capital budget is for maintenance only. Is that right?
Are we referring to the service
In the capital
today?
budget, it says playground improvements.
So that will go towards capital level improvements to existing playgrounds or replacements altogether.
That's basically POS funding. So yes, ma'am. That's part.
POS,
yes.
program open space
Yep.
funding.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. For playground maintenance, we have playgrounds that need surface replacements, things of that sort. So that's what that is for. It's strictly maintenance. That's not any new playgrounds in that 1.5 million.
Okay, so we're not planning on getting any new playgrounds then in FY27?
Well, I mean, we have playgrounds that's in the pipeline right now.
Sure, okay.
But that's probably what we will do this year. And as Adam is saying, we're going to continue to try to balance the playground needs as well as many other things. That's going to be coming now upon us being able to get this comprehensive plan in front of us.
Okay, I look forward to seeing the results of that. My second question is is one that we discussed during the CAO's presentation, and I don't remember that anybody had asked it. Could you remind us of the tree backlog, tree trimming, tree maintenance, tree removal, and stump backlog? And I know that there's been some concentrated effort on, it comes up every year in this hearing, but also there was a concentrated effort to get more resources to the department to get through the backlog. My district is one of those that has the 40% tree canopy, so we have a lot of needs, and I look forward to hearing. Just remind us again, it did come up in the CAO's hearing, but I wanted to just make sure that I understand what's happening. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'll take this, but our forest team is working with the Tiger team to try to figure out how we can address our backlog. And so as I stated earlier, it's an 81% reduction in the maintenance pruning. So we had, as of September of 2025, we had 1,865 service requests. As of today, as of May of 2026, we have 361. Tree removal backlog was reduced by 83%. We went from 1,276 to 214. So now the oldest work order that we have in our inventory is, the oldest is 5 months. So it's a range of 3 to 5 months. But what this has done, we've cut a lot of trees down. And while we did increase our stump removal also by over 400 more stumps this year, it has slightly increased
our stumps because we're cutting the tree, not the stump. So right now we're sitting at 2,561 stump work orders, which is nearly a 5-year backlog. And so what we've been working with the Tiger team is this is the last of our existing maintenance tree contract. And so as we write our scope, we're looking at the whole tree concept where we address when the service request will go out with this new contract that will be in next year's budget, that they not only cut a tree, but within a short period of time, they also remove that stump. That will stop the stump backlog from growing, but then we also have to address the existing stumps. And that estimated number right now is just short of right at $1 million to remove the entire backlog, or not completely remove it, but to get it in the same window as what we have now with our tree pruning and maintenance of 3 to 5 months. But that is why we've been working with the Tiger team and trying to assess our forest and how we move that operation forward to addressing the backlog. But we're excited.
Is that $1 million in the budget this year to be able to move forward with the stumps?
No, it's not.
It's not?
No.
Okay. Okay, that's something that I'll follow up with the CA about as well. I mean, and when we talk about our tree canopy, obviously that's important to our colleagues here. You know, hopefully we won't see the horribleness that we saw on Remington with those trees being cut down. That was really horrible. So I think that I'm glad that there's a lot of concentration on the backlog. I think that's a really good thing because it is also a safety issue. The follow-up question was about the, I have a couple of streets where there's street trees there's several of them that need maintenance. Is every single one a separate 311, or can I just send you the photo of the entire street with these overgrown trees and say, hey, I really need this taken care of?
We generally encourage people to put in individual requests. It's just easier for us to track that way. But I think in some cases we can work with you. If your office wants to reach out to us, I think we can probably work from one, and then we would just generate multiple work orders from that.
So I guess there's no proactive work being done in terms of maintaining street trees.
I wouldn't say there's none. I would say it's limited right now. As Director Moore pointed out, we've put a very heavy focus over the past year and we put most of our work towards dealing with the backlog, and that's why we're in such a good spot right now. But just in the last month, we've started doing some proactive pruning along Northern Parkway. We're about to start another effort on Loch Raven Boulevard, primarily on the median, but also on Northern Parkway. Just a couple of those areas, we're doing some work off the sides of the roads because at least on Northern, just kind of to the west of 83, we do get a lot of we get a lot of trees falling down during storms. So that's an area that we wanted to do some proactive work in. So it is limited, but we did take kind of what we had left in our budget and tried to put it towards a few different efforts this fiscal year.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Also want to thank the team for getting to 30th Street when that tree fell over the weekend, like immediately. So I very much appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Follow up on tree stumps, Councilman Schleifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director, we had done extensive work on the whole tree stump conversation, and the way that it had been left was that anytime a tree was being removed, the stump would also be removed. When did that stop, and who made that decision to stop that practice?
I can yield to our forestry team, but in the contract that we're operating now, then forester Eric Deal felt it was better to be able to cut the tree down because the amount of money that it would cost to do the whole tree would reduce the amount of trees that they can tackle. But that has been in practice for at least the last 3 years, 4 years. And so what we're coming back to is the reality is, yes, we can focus on the whole tree, but that means that less trees based on our current budget will be cut down. But that was a decision that our then forester Eric Deal made.
So this was made in conjunction with you. The reason why the decision was made to remove the stump along with the trees was an environmental, but also a financial decision. We know, and it's factual, that we get claims related to tree stumps in the law department, that they've paid out significant sums of money, trip and fall, and other issues related to those stumps. So it's costs us more not to remove the stumps than to remove them. And so whoever in your agency is deciding to not remove those is creating a financial liability to the city. So my question to you is, are you willing to change that practice here and now, or is that something that you need us to actually legislate and put in legislation to force you to do the right thing?
Sir, it's not about doing the right thing. It's about being effective and efficient in what we're doing. And one of the things we've been working with the Tiger team is to try to determine how accurate is that statement that you made. Is there a lot of risk and liability that the city's been sued for tree stumps? But what I will tell you is that, as I stated earlier, with the support of the Tiger team that's been doing this work, what we plan to do in this upcoming we have the current contract that's in place now, but in the new scope of work, when we'll be bidding out a new contract, we're talking about having them move the whole tree. But we do want to note that this is going to be a decrease in the amount of trees that we remove, but we have to stop growing the stump backlog. And the best way to do it now is to start just removing the entire tree. But it's just not that simple. And what the scope will say is that within a certain period of time, within is it 3 to 5 days, that you have to come back and remove that stump if you don't have the tools or the crews there on site that particular day, unless we get a contractor that can do this work. But I don't see a need to legislate. It's about us just putting it in our scope of work, and we will move forward with that. But at the same time, when it comes to the stumps, we have data that shows that there's communities that we've concentrated a lot of effort in for stump removals. And then there's some communities that we have not done as been as efficient. So we're also going to be focusing on those areas that are the dark greens in that data set to make sure that we focus on those areas because the areas that have more so light green, that means that there's not as many stumps. So there's a lot of data work that's been going into the stumps, sir. Yes, there was a decision that was made. To try to make sure that we continue to address this backlog and remove trees. But the strategy now is we need to touch the tree once, and that is the plan going forward when we build out the new work.
Okay, so just to clarify, because you said a lot, if a tree falls down right now, or you guys cut down a tree right now, will the stump also be removed?
No, sir. What I said was what we will be doing in these upcoming scope of work when we bid out this new contract, not the existing contract, for next year, we're going to ask that the contractor bid on removing the entire tree, the whole tree. But in the current time, what happens is if a tree falls today or we cut a tree down, that stump is not being removed, it's being added to the backlog. And we're wanting to stop adding to the backlog so that we can address the backlog, but at the same time, we can make sure we try to keep our tree removal down as well. If I miss anything, Matt, please follow up, but I believe that's not a believe, but I know that's a strategy we're going to do in the new contract.
Right. So, I mean, we just didn't get an answer on this. So
I'm not sure what you mean.
The question was whether or not the stump will be removed. You said in the next contract next year that you're going to request that it be bid out, but is that going to be a requirement of that contract? So starting next year when the new contract starts, will the tree stump need to be removed along with the tree? Yes or no?
That would be the request of the scope of work, yes, sir. But you asked me, in the current contract, existing contract, no, the stump is not part of the tree. It's a tree that's going to be cut down. But in the new scope of work that we're going to be putting out for next year's contract, it will say that if you sign on to this contract, you're not just cutting the tree down, but you will also remove the stump, and you will have X amount of days to remove that stump. It will be in the contract. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And when does that contract start? What's the month?
The current contract expires when?
Thank you. The current contract will expire at the end of FY2027. Could I add? I just want to add to the stump. Because of the stump backlog right now, we do need to work down the backlog in order to get to the point where we can do the whole tree approach. Because otherwise, in that situation, we are putting a current tree removal and that stump ahead of something that's much farther down the line. So there's going to be two parts to this. It's working down the backlog, which requires additional funding above what we've been able to put towards the stumps, but also what Director Moore's reference is a new approach and the new contract, which we do have to advertise, and we'll be working on that in the coming months for the next fiscal year, so that we can have a contract that really facilitates this type of work.
Got it. So if I can make a committee request, number one, to get the quantity and cost of the existing backlog. And I assume that should be relatively easy. You guys have that list?
I just gave it to Councilwoman back. Yes, we can have that for you. We can have that for you tomorrow, if you like.
That would be great. Tomorrow would be great. We can't wait until the end of fiscal year 27 to get this issue resolved, because it's going to be a compounding issue based on what you're saying. And don't get me wrong, I mean, your crew does great work, and I appreciate those guys work very hard, and they're out there until the job gets done. And so I have nothing but good things to say about your crews, your forestry crews that are out there. But this isn't their fault. This is a leadership fault that, decisions are made within contracts whether or not the stump should be removed or not. And this isn't me saying this. This was the law department saying this in the hearing that we had on tree stumps, that they are paying out more in lawsuits than it would cost at the time. The cost to remove all tree stumps was about $300,000, and we had paid out more than that in lawsuits related to issues with tree stumps, trip and fall, and other situations. And so this is an issue that has to get addressed this year. We're not going to create an additional, year plus of backlog to then come back and say, oh, well, now we're going to start doing it right. It's two separate issues, and I think that this contract should be amended to remove the tree stumps moving forward, and then we work separately to remove the backlog. So Director Moore, are you willing to amend the current contract to add tree stump removal so that we do not have furthering of backlogs created by tree stumps that get removed over the next year, that the trees that are getting removed, that the stumps are being left behind?
Councilman Slifer, what I would say is that we will look as a team to look at the number of trees and what this impact will be, and we will follow up with administration to share with them the full impact before I fully commit here in council and say we're going to amend an existing contract. What I will also say to you is that if we tell you today, as I stated to the councilwoman, there's 2,561 backlog stumps, approximately $1 million. But even if you gave us $1 million a day, me and Matt have spoke about our contractor. Can they get to 2,500 stumps in 1 year? It will probably be a multiple year process. So I want to manage everybody's expectations with our current contractors as well. So my position to you, sir, is that we will assess and we can follow up once we are able to share the strategy with administration going forward. But that is our future plan, is to, in the new contract, is to have them touch the whole tree. And I understand Matt's point too.
Thank you, Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you all. I wanted to talk about Service 646 a little bit, especially in conversation with Service 912. And Director Moore, you gave a really helpful explanation as to the breakout we did in the last fiscal year, in FY26, where we moved a number of staff and associated budget dollars from park maintenance into facility maintenance, right? And if I'm looking at the numbers correctly, so FY25, we had 119 positions in park maintenance in 646, and then this year had 28 in facility maintenance. Meanwhile, we dropped down by 28. So it was 28 staff members seem to have moved directly from park maintenance to facility maintenance or something like that, because the numbers add up. The question that I had, though, just to follow up there, was between FY25 and 26, and maybe I asked this question last year, and I'm sorry if I did, I'm just not remembering, but you know how our memory works. FY25 actual in 646 was 24.7 million, and then dropped to 13.2 million this year. So it's a drop of $11.5 million. And the 28 staff members moved seemingly to facility maintenance, but only 7.4 million of funding did. So oftentimes what we see when we see a service line broken out, the money kind of approximates what had been there if you add the two together, and the staff does. And so the staff numbers line up with that 28 gap, but there seems to be a missing 7.2, 11.5, $3+ million of money that also didn't follow between FY25 and 26 in those two lines. And so I'm wondering where that money went. I'm looking at my BBMR friends. You track what I'm saying?
So looking at the FY26 budget book, the FY25 budget was 19.6 million for this service.
Oh, sure. I guess I'm looking at actuals.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think that could be the point, but yeah, we transferred 6.5 to in general funds that year. And that got from 19.6 to about 13.2. That's how that went from 25 to 26 budget.
So 19.6 to 13.2. So essentially what we're saying is we overspent our FY25 budget by 5 million in that category, which is why it makes it looks like we just simply lost a bunch of money in terms of what we were funding there. So your sense then is we pretty much maintain the same level of funding between those 2 years if we're looking at budgeted dollars versus spent dollars.
Budget to budget, we're maintaining, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate that. Thanks for that explanation. Because on paper, it looked like we had somehow, one way or the other, we were shorting, we weren't providing the same level of service, at least financially. But maybe FY25, I mean, being 5 million over on a 19 million budget is a pretty high overspend. So maybe that was in fact the problem, not how we budgeted. So, but that's history. You don't have to explain 2 years ago spending. The second thing I wanted to ask, and this is more kind of flagging it for folks in the district who I know care, and from around the city who care deeply about it. There's some movement in the CIP relative to the ice rink in Patterson Park, whereas in previous years in the CIP, in like the later years of the projected capital spending, there was 5 million, 6 million set aside for the replacement of that. But that has now moved into 50K in this year. And in future years, there's no numbers there at all. And so we know why that is, but I just wanted to make sure I flagged it for constituents. So that 50K represents, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Director Moore, that 50K represents money that we're spending right now to run an engineering study of the facility, that then will allow us, hopefully, depending on the outcome of the engineering study, to use the 500K of state funds that have been dedicated to make repairs there that would buy us, hopefully, at least 5 years of safe and effective operation of that space. And would also then be the basis for conversations between community partners, the state, the city, Rec and Parks, the mayor's office around what the eventual future replacement there would look like. Does that all track with our conversations?
Yes, sir. That's what we're doing now.
Okay, great. So I really just wanted to name that. Really grateful that we have that 50K commitment on the city side in this year's capital budget, because money this year is real and money in future years is hopeful, right? As well as the state commitment. And just so folks, watching, I'm sure thousands of our First District residents are watching at home right now, but just to make sure that folks kind of know how this budget reflects the plans that we have for that space. So thank you all for your great partnership and leadership. I know we spent a lot of time on that this winter and look forward to next steps. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quick question or clarification, Director. Just when I was looking at the capital budget, looking at the Clifton Park improvements for FY27 and FY28, there was money allocated. Just wondering what that was, if you had any idea what that was for, if anyone knew what those allocations was for.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. I'm going to yield to Adam Borman to answer that question.
Yes, again, Adam Borman, Chief of Capital Development. The focus of the next 2 years of the capital budget for Clifton Park is looking at the band shell and also coordinating essentially the master planning and long-term vision of the park with regards to Morgan State and their footprint there. We've been a little slow to make movements to this point, waiting to see what their plans are. My understanding is that they've been focused on their main campus to this point, but that we're at the point where we got to get moving. So right now we know that the band shell is not going to go anywhere. It's a beloved historic asset that needs some love. So that's our focus now. We will continue to engage with planning and Morgan State to look at the vision for the entirety of that park, and really establish a 10-year plan here to make sure that Clifton receives the attention that it deserves.
No, absolutely. I think it has the potential to be one of our, world-class famous parks, just like Patterson or anywhere else. But the only way, it can happen is when we continue to make the investment in it. And the type of investment which not only it receives the funding it deserves now, but kind of catches up to the funding that hasn't been there. But I know a lot of people care about the park and look forward to it. So thank you for that. And just while we're talking about the park, kind of additional clarification. In front of Rita Church, there's always, whenever it rains, it's a flood. When we're talking about capital improvements, there's questions of whether it's clogged up or whether or not there's infrastructure work that need to be there. But I think in order for, we just wonder, is there a plan to address it? Especially when we're talking about capital improvements to kind of get this fixed, because we have a beautiful rec center and a pool in front of it. I get it. We have a pool in the back, but we'll need a pool in the front too. So, but just want to.
Just for clarification, is this in St. Lo Drive itself?
Yeah, except right on St. Lo Drive. Every time it rains, the road completely floods and the water doesn't go anywhere. And for kids and family to get in and out, they got to jump over puddles of water. And when I put in different requests in order to get it investigated, it's have a hard time figuring out what's going on there.
Understood. So in my experience, there's no hard and fast rule about roads through the parks. Some are under our purview, others are under DOT. My understanding is St. Lo is under DOT. So I'm happy to leave here today and reach out to my colleagues there and see how we can coordinate improvements to that, while we also look at improvements to the bowl across the street and some other things in the park.
Yeah, no, great. I appreciate that. Looking forward to, being a part of those conversations, whatever I can do to kind of help coordinate a multi-agency approach, which is usually saying, who's it? I appreciate it. But my next question is, one of the challenges, just wondering if you all ever thought about this, but one of the challenges I often receive in the district is while engaging our youth is, something you all, lean in and take the lead on, but I think it's a responsibility that's shared amongst the entire community. And there's so many other nonprofit programs that often engage our youth through mentorship or, tutoring and so forth. But one of the hardest challenges they have is finding space in order to operate. I know the way you all, operate is usually, it has to be Recs and Parks programming that occupy the space. Has there ever been thought on, or is it even possible for since you all have facilities in almost every community, to provide space to nonprofit partners to kind of work with our children sometimes?
We do offer opportunities to partner with other partners, but we also are working on a rental policy where they could actually utilize the facility. We do concentrate on recreation programs and what's happening, but we absolutely welcome the opportunity to partner and work with the different organizations. We actually have many partnerships, and the one I'm thinking of right now is Harlem Park Recreation Center, where we have an extremely great partner in Alcoholics Anonymous. Madison, which we worked on with the football organization. So we are looking into those opportunities to expand those further.
No, I think that'd be great. So they aren't as one-offs, but if we had a formal kind of strategy or plan for these groups to also engage with you all. So, if there is space available, they can also utilize it in order to help facilitate it, help engage with our youth. So thank you.
Absolutely. And
for
we
answering.
also offer opportunities for those organizations to become vendors in our spaces as well. So they can apply to our programming division and become vendors.
Okay, cool. Yep. Well, thank you all for answering my question. Thanks, Madam Chair.
We're moving into the last round. You have exactly one question, exactly one follow-up. Tie your questions and your follow-ups to the budget. Councilman Blanchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director, in Service 649, the performance measure is total cost recovery by special facilities. Going back to the conversation around Charm City Lights and other park programs and events, do you think it makes sense to track costs? We were talking about the cost of Charm City Lights and different, do you think it makes sense to have a performance measure for cost recovery?
If I'm understanding you, your question is, should we have a measure that focuses on cost recovery?
For Service 653.
Oh, 653.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Okay,
So we
okay.
have it in Service 649 for special facilities. And I, to be completely clear, I don't think, I am not if Charm City Lights doesn't break even, it's a problem, right? I don't believe that. But for Service 653, I think there's a similar thing of, there's sort of these special things that city does that isn't classic rec and parks things. Should we be tracking when revenue is also coming in and being generated by the events? Should we be tracking that as a performance measure?
I mean, yeah, we can work with BBMR and look at that measure, maybe as a potential measure that we can add for next year's budget.
Do you have and follow up, do you have a reason why you think that would not be a good idea?
I mean, I don't see us, always when we have facilities that are heavily dependent on revenue, so, I mean, we're tracking internally, but I don't see a need, no, I don't see a problem with that request.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Last question, committee member, going to Councilmember Gray.
Thank you. Again, I just wanted to go back to one of Councilwoman Ramos's questions regarding the tree backlog. Many trees face several prominent diseases ranging from invasive blight to native fungi. And so a few examples you all know of, the beech leaf disease, the emerald ash borer that has wreaked havoc across the city, particularly in my district. We know that proper identification and early action are crucial for managing these threats to the local ecosystem. Can you tell us how you're monitoring these invasive species so that Baltimore's forestry backlog does not continue to spiral?
Sure. That's a good question, Councilman. I did mention emerald ash borer. That's, probably one of the most devastating things we've dealt with. Unfortunately, that has kind of passed, and the damage is done. And now we're trying to go into some of those forests and do restoration, which that's a whole nother thing that we haven't really talked about here, but that there's a cost associated with that. But we do have a natural areas team. It's a small team, and that's the team that brought the deer management program. But that's the group within forestry where we are looking at these types of issues specifically. And the next big one is beech leaf disease. Over the past, I would say, year and a half, we've had a lot of meetings with the scientific and the academic community, with the U.S. Forest Service, and trying to learn what other people are doing if there are efforts to address beech leaf disease. So we've been out and we've been monitoring it and looking for signs of it. And I will say that unfortunately, we have seen it in our city. It is here now. It does appear to be spreading fast. So we are very concerned about that. Just with the loss of the ash and some of our older oak trees, we were actually looking to beech trees as kind of becoming one of those dominant canopy trees in many of our forests. So we're still kind of assessing what is going to come from that. We've talked to people in, I guess on the private side where we have like a Davy research group and some of the other tree companies have actually started developing different treatment methods for these. We don't know that that's really going to work in some of these forested areas or if it's even really worthwhile, but that is something we're looking into. I don't have the answer on it right now, but we're going to do everything we can. And if there's an action we can take, similar to how we were treating the ash trees for ash borer, we will certainly take that approach. And then I guess just as an add-on, if you do see an ash tree around the city, if you see a tree with green dots at the base, that indicates that we've actually been treating that tree. So in case you see that and wonder what that's from.
Is there any way you can identify the beech leaf disease for anyone that's watching? Like if it's a city tree perhaps, and they can reach out and let you know what it looks like. And furthermore, is there any way we can send out those notifications through the Rec and Parks Instagram, social media, and feeds to make people aware of what's going on in case they have a tree on their property or a tree near their property that's a city tree?
Yes, I think we can do that. As far as like putting out maybe a one-pager or something with some photographs that people could use, we can certainly develop that. Let me talk to my team. As far as like for people that are listening here, it's kind of hard to see because it's up in the canopy, but we're looking at the leaves and you're going to see like kind of a small banding on the leaves, like between the veins where it's basically a discoloration, I think, would be the easiest thing for somebody who's in their backyard looking at it, but you might need binoculars depending on how high up it is. But we can certainly develop something for the public.
Thank you all for joining us. We're going to be back at 12:30 with the Office of Homeless Services.